Greetings, everyone. I'm your host, Chris Garis, and welcome to the Transporter Room. I'm thrilled to launch our episode review series for Star Trek Enterprise. Joining me on this journey is my incredible co host, Allyson Leach-Heid, who will be exploring each episode alongside me. We're starting strong with the pilot Broken Bow and its follow up, Fight or Flight. So, without further ado, let's beam in Allyson. Hey, Allyson, great to have you aboard.
Hello.
Hey, thank you for doing this.
Well, thanks for asking me. I'm super excited.
Oh, me too. And nervous at the same time, trying to figure out how this is going to go. It'll be fine. You always learn. It may be a little rough out of the gate, but hey, it's a good series to start on because it's one that I really do enjoy a lot. So I think I'll be able to get through it. Now, we hit DS9 and all those other series. Not that I don't like them. I'm just not I don't have the knowledge of why I haven't watched them enough.
Mhm. Well, there are plenty of us here in Star Trek fandom who have definitely watched them more times than we can count or remember to help you through.
I know. Well, I appreciate it. So for our first episode, we're gonna do Broken Bow, which originally aired on September 26, 2001. It was directed by James L. Conway. Enterprise was actually created by Rick Berman and Brandon Braga. This episode was actually written by Rick Berman and Brandon Braga. And so, you know, as we were watching it, I remember when it came on, I was kind of surprised that we started with Archer as a child, as a young boy. And I thought, okay, that was cool. And I liked how, he's building his little spaceship and painting it. And I was like, okay, that was pretty damn cool. They hadn't even really started yet, but they were using the same kind of nacelle colors as TOS. And I guess now that I think about it, even in First Contact, the nacelle, tips were probably the same
Yeah.
color. Am I right?
Yes, they have always been that kind of reddish tip.
Yeah, reddish orangish
Yeah.
color. Okay, and that's
Starting
what
with
I thought.
the original series. Yeah, they've all
Mm-hmm.
been that color.
Yeah, and I liked in the beginning, he's talking about it, and he's asking his dad, how how big will your ship be, and all this stuff, and he tells him it'll be, it's going to be pretty large, and will it be, he's asking him how fast will it be and whatnot, and he says, "Well, be as big as fast as Ambassador Pointy Ears."
Yes. Yeah, I giggled. I mean,
I did too.
uh,
And then, of course, his dad scolds him. It's like, "I told you not to call him that,
mhm.
Jonathan." So,
Kids know they're in trouble when their parents use their full name, you know,
absolutely.
especially one that's, usually shortened. So, yeah, when you get called Jonathan, he knew he was in trouble.
Hell yeah, he did. Well, and it was interesting. I've actually seen some reviews where people actually were a little critical about that kind of a derogatory statement. And I get it, but he was a teenager.
Yeah, he was a kid, and kids do pick that type of stuff up. And if we remember the original series, I mean, McCoy, one of my favorite characters, is forever, calling Spock like pointy ears or green blooded hobgoblin, all those things. So it's already in universe that we definitely do take the Mickey out of Vulcans. So it wasn't, it didn't really bring me out of it. I'm like, yeah, this is normal for what we have even set in the universe. So
No, I agree. And so I honestly, of course, in 2001, I didn't think anything really of it. And we were just talking. So what were you doing on September 26, 2001?
I was 2 weeks into my freshman year of college. I was in Bennington, Vermont, and it was probably, the evening when this came out. My school had absolutely no television reception, so I did not watch this when it aired. I watched it years later.
Oh, wow. I think I remember actually watching it when it premiered. Thankfully, I had satellite TV, so I was able to get that, you know. Uh, but then, so after we have that opening from there, then we move 30 years into the future and we meet for the first time ever a Klingon.
Clang.
Which was what?
Oh, Clang running through the
Yes.
cornfield. I thought that was the funniest juxtaposition to start like the actual like sci-fi of this show is we're getting a cornfield and a Klingon, and then as we find out later, Suliban's with the cool speckled yellow heads just running through it. And I'm like, this is great. It's funny. It's so different than what we've experienced with any of the other pilots at this time. So I'm like, what's going on? So yeah, I did enjoy that.
Oh, I did too. And he runs in there and then blows and then jumps out of the silo, and then he sits there, starts barking at the farmer in Klingon. He's like, I don't know what the hell this guy's talking, and then he keeps on yelling at him in Klingon. He just freaking boom shoots him with the freaking plasma rifle.
Also, completely not something that surprised me. So I'm like, yeah, I mean, Klingons are terrifying. So yeah, I think most people would feel that way if a Klingon was yelling at them and they'd never seen one before and had no idea what was going on and it was coming at them. Yeah, no.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sorry if I saw that coming after me. I don't even know if I would have asked first. I might have I'd say I might have shot first. I don't know.
Well,
Um,
and Tom Lister was a huge, huge man.
yeah,
So yeah,
tiny Lister.
yeah, tiny. Yes.
Not very tiny.
No. Rest in peace.
Yeah, and I was actually having to remember. For a minute there. I was getting him confused with the guy had just passed away earlier last year. Was it last year? I wish I could remember his name. He played the older Jake.
Oh, Tony Todd. Yes.
Tony Todd. Tony Todd.
They both played Klingons in Star Trek. That is true. So yeah, I remember Tom Lister from The Fifth Element. He played the president, and that's where I remember his face from every single time. I'm like, it's the president, yes. And I didn't watch the WWE, so I didn't know him from that.
No, me either. I did not either. So yeah, no, I I do remember him from The Fifth Element, which was a great movie as well. At least I liked it.
I
I
love that
mean,
movie.
yeah, it was a great movie. Um, and so after all that happens, now we move into basically I guess you would call it the sick bay or the medical facility on Earth.
Don't
And
forget
oh
the
man,
theme song that happened right after the
oh,
explosion.
true.
Uh,
Maybe I was trying to
let's skip
avoid
that.
that
Yeah.
controversy.
It was
Okay.
definitely the first time I watched it, I remember just going, "What? Their lyrics?" I was not prepared for that.
I don't know why it just for whatever reason it did not bother me at all. I'm like, okay, it's just because I think personally, I think I was more captivated by all the the scenes.
The ships, yes, I really, really like the visuals behind it, showing all of the different versions of the Enterprise. I did really enjoy that. I was just shocked because, again, I'm in my 20s and I've been watching Star Trek for as long as I could remember. And now there's suddenly lyrics. I'm like, singing was fine because, we did have vocalization in the original series. And so I was mostly just surprised. And it took a while to get used to it. Now I love the song, but it's also something we sing at karaoke at conventions together because we now love it. So whole new life.
It has, it really has. And where were we at? I want to say we were all on. I think we were in a discussion somewhere, and who was telling me that they actually had wanted they
Oh, yeah, yes. Oh, and now I lost his name too. Oh no, Rob, it's gone.
yeah.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, look it up because he was actually a big star, a rock star, musician,
Yes,
and there was no way they could afford his to pay the royalties to get him to release that song.
Rod Stewart. There we go.
Yes, yes,
Ah.
good old internet. But yeah, and so because it was originally I think a Rod Stewart song, or something of that nature, and then it just didn't work out because they could not afford the rights to get him to sing it. And so,
Yeah, so
uh-oh.
it was written by Diane Warren, performed by
Hmm.
Rod Stewart for the soundtrack of the 1998 film Patch Adams.
Yes, another
Which
good movie if you've seen that one.
I don't remember it. I've seen
Yeah,
parts of it. I don't think I've
yeah,
seen all of it, but it's a Robin Williams movie,
yeah.
so
It's good.
it's got to be good.
It's very good. Okay, so yes, I forgot about the opening again. I was like, I even thought about, do I even mention the opening? But I'm glad you did. But I'm glad you did. That's why I needed a co-host for this, because there's no way I will be able to do this and make it fun by myself. So, so now after we get done with the opening scene, we move into the medical facility where Clang is sitting there basically in the Vulcan's mind dead. Like they just I couldn't believe that, honestly, and I the arrogance that they had.
Mhm. Oh, so arrogant. So arrogant. It is palpable in there. I mean, from Saval and Toss, they are, and, Gary Graham does a wonderful job of portraying Saval, and rest in peace. And he was the first, Star Trek actor I met in person at STLV 2 years ago. Like, I walked in and to the masquerade bar where all of my Seventh Rule peeps were, and like, "Would you like to meet Gary Graham?" I'm like, "I would love to meet Gary Graham." So, he was first, and then, Dominic and Anthony Montgomery were next.
Oh, I want to meet Anthony. I really want to meet Anthony Montgomery.
He is a trip and a ton of fun.
I bet. If you did you watch when he was on Virtual TrekCon this year? If
Yes.
not, okay. If not, you have
Oh,
to.
this year? No, this year I was in, Vegas for work,
That's
so
right. You're at your
I
work
have
event.
missed. I have to catch up
Oh
on.
my gosh,
Oh,
he
he's so much
was
fun.
he was so fun. He was so funny. So, oh my god, yeah, it was hilarious the way he did it. So that's cool as you've gotten to meet him. I'm looking forward to meeting him one of these days as well. He's needs to be at a convention that we're at. But and so again, so we come in and I'm just like, okay, you know, you got Admiral Forrest, and they're talking about him, about Clang and what he is and why he's here, and trying to figure it all out. But and and they're just kind of like, he's a Klingon, and he's like, no, it's a Klingon. Oh
Yeah.
my god, what an ass.
Well,
God.
what's fun about that little scene there is that they name so many people after original series, because we've got Admiral Forrest, we've got Commander Williams for William Shatner, Forrest for DeForest Kelly, Admiral Leonard for Leonard Nimoy, and Toss, the attache, is for TOS, the original series. So they threw those all in there. And the farmer who shot Clang, is Farmer Moore for Ron D. Moore. I thought that was great. I'm like, "Yay, throw all the little things in." I love it.
That is good. And then and finally Archer comes in. Jonathan Archer walks in, and he's questioning what's going on and wants to know about Clang, and and he's like, well, is he gonna die? Well, I don't think so. And so he goes in there and goes and talks to Phlox, which, oh man, I can't wait till we get to talk a little bit more about Phlox. But he goes in there and asks Phlox, is this man gonna die? "Hmm, not today," or so
I don't think so. Yeah, I loved when
yeah.
he just tapped on the glass at the end of the scene and just went, "Come here," and Fox is like, "What, me?" It's like, "Yes, you.
Hmm.
You're the only one he wants to talk to in there." Well, I mean, he'd like to talk to the Klingon, but the Klingon isn't talking, so.
Yeah, no, the Klingon is a little unconscious at this point, you know. Oh my god. So, but then, so now, so now we have that part. We've got this, this tension again. Now we're really seeing the tension between the Vulcans and Starfleet. And, it kind of made me wonder. It's like, these Vulcans are not, I don't
They're
know if they're
so
like the,
different than what we
yeah,
expect them to be, and especially with, we have, again, so much history with Star Trek of what Vulcans are like, that we're like, these guys are a little, I mean, we say that Vulcans are arrogant in TOS, but this is extra. Like, they're a little extra arrogant right now. So what is going on? So yeah, it did feel a little discombobulating, I guess, that they do feel different than what we're used to. And I know we have, spoilers, there's a payout for that later on in the series, but we had to work for that. And I did find it interesting that both Rick Berman and Brandon Braga went, "Hey, let's start here with the Vulcans, and let's actually show how we all grew together." This is, Vulcans had been fairly static, and then they met us, and we're trying to keep us static, and then we were static for as long as Jonathan Archer could handle it, and is like, "No, no, 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 we're going now." And then, we all evolved together to what we know for future Star Trek shows. So I thought that was kind of cool.
yeah. I mean, and it really did, like you said, it was very discombobulating because, you know, I'm expecting that. Well, first off, I mean, he even calls him out when he says, "So when you don't get your, was it this one?" He says, "You don't get your way, you raise your voice."
Yes.
I
You've
think
been
he
on
actually
our
says
too
that a
long.
couple other times in other episodes throughout the series when Saval kind of raises his voice and not getting his way. Um, yeah. So anyway, yeah. And so, it was a good intro to how Vulcans from the 22nd century are a lot different than Vulcans from the 23rd century, which, as we get through the series, we actually learn why. And so I'm looking forward to that discussion. And that might be, I'm not sure when, it's going to be a couple weeks from now. Um,
Just a
so
few.
just a few. So now, actually, yeah. Oh, correction. Yes, several. That's season. Yeah. Anyway, my math is going in my head. And it's kind of late, and I'm trying to do things, and mathing just doesn't work. Um,
Math can stop after a certain time of day. That's fine.
exactly. And so now we move on to the first time we actually see the Enterprise with Enterprise with Trip and Reed are on there, and they're talking about the transporter, and they're questioning about when not Trip and Reed,
It's
uh,
Montgomery. It's Anthony.
Montgomery and Reed.
Sorry.
Yeah,
So
when Travis,
Travis. Yeah.
yeah, Travis and Malcolm are talking about, and Travis says, "Well, it's now been approved for biomatter," and and
He's like,
he's
no,
like,
no, 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 I don't think so. I really enjoyed that scene because I thought it really set up their characters very quickly and very well. Like, Reed's the armory officer, Travis is the helmsman. He's a space boomer and is British, so we know he's from Earth because he's got the accent. So we're just going to assume that that stayed there, that we haven't spread out to have English accents in different areas of the galaxy yet. So I really like that. It threw a little bit of humor because we all know how TOS people, like, again, I'm gonna bring up McCoy, how he felt about the transporter, did not approve of it. So adding that they're just now doing biological life forms it's a fun little, again, nod to TOS. So I like that a lot.
"What I like." He goes, "No, armory officers and
Yeah.
helmsmen."
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and I totally forgot another opening scene. I don't know how I forgot to put that on my notes.
Oh, Trip
Uh,
and John and Archer
yes, examining the
viewing.
Enterprise.
Yes. And then we're glad Trip isn't the pilot because he scratch and paint. Yes.
Yeah, he has the issues with that.
Yeah, don't do that. He's too
Oh, I
busy
know.
trying to keep it in one piece to care about scratch and paint. That's an easy thing. And no one's
Hmm.
gonna care, really.
So I'm just thought about something here on that scene. I wonder if it's I would call it a very microscopic version or nod to, I'm gonna say, the hero ship scene in the motion picture
Yes.
when
It definitely reminds me of that too.
Mm-hmm.
And also, when the beginning of Voyager, first episode, when the actual helmsman is taking
Yes.
Tom Paris, we get a
Mm-hmm.
little bit something like that.
Yeah. True. Okay. And so yes, I don't know how I forgot about that. I even left it off my notes, but I'm like, that's a huge thing.
And
Anyway, it's first time.
one thing I really like that it really became apparent to me in that episode is the time period this is in, because Archer's in a baseball cap. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't too far in the future. Like, he's got his baseball cap, he's got a bomber jacket on, he's in what we consider regular military work garb, work uniforms. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this isn't that far from us compared to original series and next gen and whatnot.
Correct. Well, and they purposely said it only 150 years in the future from because it was in 2001 and it came out in 2151.
Yep.
I remember reading something about that they purposely did it. So you're like, man, that's really not
Not that far.
that far.
Mhm. We've been playing baseball in this country for over 150 years, so
And they play it in the 24th century, apparently still.
at least the Ciscos
Well,
do.
the Cisco's do.
And Cassie Yates' brother.
hmm Um, and so after that, so then now we get to see engineering for the first time, the actual Warp 5 engine, which I always laugh because they called it a Warp 5 engine, but it really never for a while it was a Warp 4-ish, Warp
Four-ish, yeah.
4.5.
No, we're working on getting it, testing out, like, the top being 5. And because we also never call any of the other warp engines the Warp 9.9999 engine. We don't hit warp 10 except for a few times, and one time it goes really weird. Other times it's just normal, but,
Yeah, it
yeah,
went really weird. We had some lizards come out of that,
yeah,
lizard babies.
lizard
Uh,
babies. So, yes. I also one thing that I do have, like, a tiny nitpick about Enterprise is, like, we have a warp 5 engine, and we go warp 4, like, almost everywhere. I'm like, that is 80% at, like, top speed at all times. Like, you're gonna burn that engine out, because original series, they go warp 2 a lot of places. Like,
yeah.
why are we going faster? But I don't know.
Well, and
Those
I
are
wonder if that was also some of they didn't really realize what they were doing in the original series, so they had no
oh, yeah.
idea. I mean, war. Oh my, like I think it was the very first like time warp one. I'm like, oh my gosh, at the
Oh,
very
yes.
like
Yes.
at like I think it was like the very like menagerie in the very first one, the very first ones, and so I was like, oh my god, that was rough.
That's true.
Oh,
We had to work
mm-hmm.
into what we are used to in our Star Trek universe now. But I mean, I like to think about it. I'm like, well, I drive in a town. So, sometimes I go 30, sometimes I go 15, sometimes I go 50, depending on, what streets and where I'm going. So I'm like, we should go more different speeds. And since we're in a engine that has a less fast capacity, we should do smaller numbers. So
True, and we should do that. Um, And no, when I was doing some research, I found this out on IMDb about this series, and so all other series they said have had a character from at least a character from another series kind of
yes,
launch the
yes,
show,
we did get that in this one too.
just not a captain,
Yep.
but James Cromwell.
Yep, we got Cromwell, so we got Zephram Cochrane, which is
Hmm
fabulous. And I love that they attribute the opening monologue to his first speech. I do love that they attributed that to him. I'm like, this is great. I love this.
hmm I did too, and I loved. I don't know why the nerd in me loved it, but I just like the whole fact we see the next not the Phoenix
Mhm.
is in the opening series in the
Yep.
opening opening in the opening credits. I'm like, oh, that's First Contact, and
Yes.
so um, now I did question in my and I was trying to kind of figure out the math here. He had to be approaching well over 100 though.
Yes, I think so too. So I think the one thing that truly came up fast was medical technology, and so our lifespans grew exponentially. Because I mean, he's coming out of World War III and like nuclear holocaust and whatnot. Like, so for the fact that he's going to live within, so his lifespan can overlap with one person who's with, Picard or Kirk. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, this is I too have that feeling, but I'm like, this is my in-head canon, is that Vulcans were much more liberal with their medical technology, or helping us develop our medical technology.
That's a valid point, and they could be. I don't know, but I still, even today, when I'm still watching the day, I'm like, God, he had to have been well over 100 something years old because, I mean, when you look at how old he was in First Contact. Now, again, we're
He's
putting the
barely
actor
aged a day.
exactly. Yeah,
The actor has
but
barely aged a day, so it was all
exactly.
still kind of around the same time.
So, but I did. I was not expecting that when I first watched the series, and I was like, oh, that's so cool,
Mhm.
and that they did that, and so that was awesome. And
Yeah.
then so finally they're going and they're boarding Enterprise, they're taking off, and I
Oh, I loved
guess
how Archer got Hoshi, because Hoshi didn't want to come. So meeting her in the jungle in Brazil, I think, and that's where she is. She's like, I don't want to come. I don't want to come. I don't want to come. And he's like, here, listen to this, and just dangling Klingon as a carrot in front of her, like, you want to come, you do. And she's like, damn it, fine. So I do really like that scene, because I think it shows that, and again, we'll talk about this in the next episode, but that Hoshi is here for knowledge, not even exploration. She wants to go figure out puzzles of languages, and that's all she wants. And the only way she can do that now is highly outside of her comfort zone. And so I do like how we set that up in this in the first episode. So yeah.
oh yeah, she is. I mean, the whole time she's on the bridge and she's just, well, she's like, is that normal? Is that normal? And I guess well, I don't, well, nobody honestly, no, nobody in Starfleet had been on a vessel going that fast. Maybe a couple of people have maybe flown on Vulcan vessels, but
Yep.
she hadn't. So
She
it
had, yeah,
was,
no, exactly, and the test vehicles that had been flying that fast, she wouldn't have been on. So, yeah, the test vehicles, like, yeah, no, sure, we've got, and it's a new ship, so, if you've ever been in a new house or a new car, they kinda have to wear in a little bit. So, they'll settle and make squeaky noises and
exactly. And now, okay, so this is something that I have probably said in other either online groups with us, our friends, or whoever. I, the medical technology in the 22nd century should be, I, I maybe it was, I don't get it. Why is he using
oh, why
animals?
is Phlox using all of these creatures?
Yes,
For
I mean,
well,
don't get me wrong. That was a funny scene when they're in the sick bay and they're unloading everything, and he's looking at,
the
you
bats.
know, everything in there, and he's like, their droppings are great for this. I'm like,
They're what?
uh,
I like to think of it as, denobulans do use medicine differently, and that's just how their medical knowledge has evolved. They use things, without changing them, or, we're gonna use the what was the thing that we put on Archer's leg later?
it
And
was the eel of
yes,
something.
the asthmatic eel, there we go. And so that's kind of how I think about it, because the Vulcans don't do that, and the Earthlings don't do that, but Denobulans do. So that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, this is how he was trained, and this is the knowledge he has. And so he'll bring his knowledge and he'll take from other cultures as well. So again, that's
Yeah.
my internal head canon on that one. But I guess now it's my
Yeah.
external out loud. It's still my thought.
Yeah. My head canon just is like they're supposed to be doing, hypos
Mm.
and scanning, and I'm like, oh, don't put an eel and blood, and was it bloodworms or whatever he puts?
Oh yeah, we got
Oh
some
my,
leeches. Yeah,
yeah.
those definitely get used at some point. Yeah.
I
So yeah,
mean,
that is an interesting thing, but I also like it because it kind of ties it again that it's not as far in the future, that we haven't completely, left these type of things or figured out how to, get the asthmatic eel gel or whatever it is that heals our leg, like to synthesize that. We still need the eel for it. So yeah, it is interesting, and it leads to a lot of humor. So I can see why they brought it on, because a lot of it is funny. All the animals. I mean, I love Porthos, and I love that Porthos likes T'Pol and wants to jump up and get attention from her, and she's just like, "No, you smell because 'cause you're a dog, and I am a Vulcan female." Like, this is not gonna be a relationship that's gonna happen, but I do love it.
and speaking of Vulcan females, if I'm not mistaken, that's the first time we learn about they have a strong sense of smell.
I think so too. I don't think that's mentioned in TOS or anywhere else.
Mm-mm. I don't think it is either at all. And then I was thinking about, so then they when they go to their first meal in the captain's dining hall between Archer, T'Pol, and Trip, you know, again, that was another kind of tense moment, honestly, between because he was, Captain Archer was basically laying down the law to T'Pol about, what's said in here stays here because he doesn't want it going back to the Vulcan High Command and questioning everything. And I don't know. That was a rough scene.
Yes, they were this. That's probably my biggest criticism of this episode is that they really really harp on making sure we as an audience are uncomfortable about the relationship between Vulcans and humans, and that these people might not become friendly with each other. So I do think that Archer is a bit heavy-handed in his dislike of the Vulcans, and it does really come out super strong in this episode. And I know they're world building, and it's so we really understand that. But also, she's only been slightly snide. She hasn't been too terrible yet.
Not yet.
I
Now
don't think
she does pick on us. She does call us out, though. You can't. What did she say? You're still eating meat and all. Basically calling out Trip for eating his steak. And
both of them. They both have big juicy steaks.
true, exactly. And I remember Connor was saying that I don't know if it was that scene, but several scenes whenever he was eating, he actually had to be, the one of the prop masters had to tell him how to eat slowly.
Yeah, because he would just eat it. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was so good from what I've heard him say.
You know, I'm glad they did not give him a bad steak because that is the worst thing to be handed. I am not a vegetarian, but if you get handed a bad steak, you're not gonna look like you're enjoying it because you don't. That is hard to fake, even if you are a fabulous actor. I have another nitpick about the food on that plate on the table is why would they just hand her a pile of grilled vegetables? There's so many other ways to make very tasty vegetarian food other than a, like, salad with some grilled vegetables thrown on top. I'm like, "That's not appetizing."
And
Like,
a
I'm sorry.
breadstick.
And very, very hard cracker breadsticks.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm like, "I don't know about this."
Yeah. Well, and I guess, there's no guessing. That was obviously part of the reason why they did that was so that she could prove with patience and concentration you can overcome anything. And
That's right.
uh,
I know. Yeah. Uh, And I always wonder, I'm like, so Vulcans drink tea. I'm like, are they drinking sweet tea? And that's why she doesn't want any? Because, Trips from the South. I know he's from Florida, but maybe he just, like, really likes sweet tea, and that's why she will not drink the tea. Because 'cause I'm like, Vulcans drink tea all the time, so I always thought that was weird. So, this time, watch through, I'm like, "Are they drinking sweet tea, and that's why she doesn't want any?"
Hmm. Sweet
I know,
tea.
it's a
Yum.
very odd thing to think about.
But oh, but that whole thing, that whole scene was odd, honestly. And so now we finally move from that. We finally get back on the bridge, and this is where we were talking about earlier. Poor Hoshi. She's like, is that vibration normal?
Mhm,
And because they're actually, I think they're going like to warp 4.5 or something
mhm.
like that. And there's a little vibration, and Reed's like, that's typical. It's fine. And I'm thinking like, does he really know? Has he been on a warp 4.5 ship before? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, how many little jaunts has he done? Like, are they just new on, like, today, week, so yes, I agree. I didn't like how combative T'Pol and Hoshi were in that scene either. I'm like, what do you mean? Because she's T'Pol's a Vulcan. I'm sure she can hear and feel everything that's going on. So to look at Hoshi and say it's in you're imagining things is, I'm like, she's not. Like, why would you say that? You could just say it's okay or this is normal, and that would suffice. But to tell her that she's imagining it, I'm like, I don't like that.
Well, and that's why if you go, if you look up what Hoshi told her, it loosely translates to when in Vulcan, go to hell.
Yes. 'Cause I'm like, "What is this?" And also, I don't like it because 'cause they're the only 2 female characters we have, and to start them off like, truly combative, I'm like, "I don't like that." Like, you can start off not liking someone and then work towards but could maybe we not start off, like, truly, truly combative? For a Vulcan, at least?
That's I hadn't thought about it like that. I had not thought about it like that, but you're right. I mean, I hadn't thought about that perspective, but yeah, no. I mean, you've got the only literally the only two female.
I mean, this is also the first time we've had the females truly be combative because Beverly and Troy, never combative. Um, Kira and Jadzia weren't truly combative. They became friends. They definitely had differing opinions, but that was normal. Let's see, Uhura and Chapel got along fabulously. I mean, they kissed on an episode, like, so no, they got along great. I don't remember what episode it's in, but it's a celebration of they achieved something, and the actresses looked at each other and just gave each other a kiss and went on with the show in the background, and
Oh
yes.
wow,
So,
I did
yes,
not know
those
that.
2 get along fabulously. So I'm like, "Why are we having this with these 2 when it's not necessary? You could just have them become acquaintances." So,
and I was gonna say probably the only other characters that kind of started off, I don't know, let me say not as combative that I can think of was Pulaski and Data, and it really wasn't Data; it was Pulaski
yes,
to
exactly.
him. Since, but that's really the only ones I can think of. I mean, Spock and McCoy, but that wasn't because that was just them picking at each other. That
Yeah,
that
and they
was
were
just
used to it. That was just how it was. But
yeah.
yes, you're right. No, but when Pulaski came on the ship, Troy went to her. I mean, because it's the child. It's that episode. That's her first episode. And so there's still no she's like, "This is my doctor, and this is who I have to confide in, and I have to talk to her." And so, of course, she would have preferred Beverly, who is, a great friend of hers, but so for me, that was the one thing I'm like, "Why are they like this?" I'm like, "They don't have to be like this. They can still show that Hoshi's human and DePaul is Vulcan without a Vulcan pretty much telling the female Vulcan tell the human female that she's crazy." I'm like, "We could definitely come about this a little
Yeah.
different.
True. Well, well, I think it was a time I think it was also just part of the time, and I don't know what Rick and them were trying to do, and I think that's one of the that was one of the issues with the show overall. I think as it progressed, but um, so finally we go through all those lovely little issues, and Clang has finally awoken, and so now he calls Hoshi and everybody down to sick bay to try and figure out what in the world he's saying. And she's actually, well, I don't know. That's a good question. Was it all due to his, mental issue, his whatever his problems were? Is the why I think it was, as to why she was having such a hard time translating everything.
No, and I love that it's Phlox who is looking at her getting all flustered and frustrated and looking at her translator and then looking over at his readouts and it's like, let me check this. Like, no, he's not making sense. Nothing is firing in the right way in there. So no, he's doing fine.
It's true, and that's exactly what it was. And so we had that scene, and we go straight basically to the Suliban attacking the Enterprise and taking over and coming to the ship. And uh, I I don't know. I guess part of my thing was, again, I've got to take 24th century thought processes out at times, because like, how did I mean, I know they beamed in or whatever undetected, and so they were cloaked, so I
Well,
guess
they don't
that's
have shields. So
true.
it's easier to get on. They have the
Hull plating.
plating. Yeah, so they don't have shields to stop that.
Yeah. And so and that was a good little fight scene, honestly. And then but Klang's a big dude,
But
and
his brain isn't firing right. So, I mean, if he can't string a sentence together, maybe he can't actually
he
defend
can't
himself
fight.
either.
He can't defend himself. True.
I I loved the shot from Klang's perspective in the bio bed with the
Oh
sword
yeah.
rolling on him. I'm like, that's awesome. Love that shot.
Oh, that would have freaked me the hell out if I was laying in that bed and I saw that happen. Even my brain wasn't working. I still might have freaked the hell out. Oh my god. Yeah. Um, and unfortunately, after all of that, we now come back to a semi more. Again, this until starting talking about this, I don't think I really picked up all of the combativeness between well, her and the crew, because now, he's like, follow the ship. Well, your sensors are too, she's very dismissive. Your sensors are too primitive to be able to do that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's true. I mean, and again, they're world building and they're trying to make it seem they're trying they are starting the journey for DePaul and Archer and Trip to become friends and trust each other. So we had to start at a place of distrust. And so and since we can't, we're not going to hear their thoughts, they have to say their thoughts out loud. And so it is I know it's a service to the story, but it is a lot for an hour and a half that it gets
Mm-hmm. It
repeated
is.
over and over
Mm-hmm.
and
Well,
over.
because more than that, she then, she's with, which again is so annoying. Again shows the distrust that the Vulcans and the humans and Starfleet have. She was not going to reveal about Rigel 10.
Mhm. Yep. Because you didn't need to know. Wasn't allowed to say anything. It's like,
Yeah,
what?
he was not on a need to know basis.
Yeah, he's the captain of the ship. But again, if we go about it like different countries sharing
True.
intel, we
Yeah.
tend to not do that. We pick and choose what we're
True.
and so I think that's another thing to put into perspective is that at this time, they're not truly aligned. They're two
Mm-hmm.
separate worlds
Fleets. Yeah.
that are kind of cooperating, but they're not fully aligned. So,
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly what they, obviously as the series progresses, this is the first time a Vulcan has served on from, well, at, it's not the first time, but it's when she'll be the longest to serve on a human vessel. Um,
Oh
and we
yes,
know
yes. She beat somebody because the first one what
two
managed
weeks.
like 2 weeks or something. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll find that
And,
out.
and I, yeah. And I see what and I agree with what you're saying. They are having to build, they're, they're building us up to Spock and Kirk and McCoy. It's just that we have to go through a whole lot of junk for at the beginning to make that happen. And it's just again, as for people like you and I and people that peruse to watch this type of content, it's probably hard at first to change your mindset. But the same thing did for me did TOS. I'm like, okay, that's TOS, and it is what it is. Um,
Well, and if you took Voyager, we have the McKee crew and the Starfleet crew, and they have like no tension, like at all. You would assume there'd be more. I mean, there is some in like 3 episodes, and then like specific episodes that they write for it. But you would think they would have more than, but we get much more in Enterprise. So maybe there was dealing with some of that. I guess criticism for Voyager since this started filming 2 weeks after Voyager stopped filming. And so maybe they had that in mind. So like, well, we need to carry this further because that was a criticism we had for Voyager.
it was, and I actually, so as to kind of learn how to do this, I actually went and watched the very first Delta Flyers
Oh,
with
sweet.
Robbie, the very first one of Voyager Caretaker, and they actually mentioned, I think they actually brought that up during that one, is that
We did
you
talk about
know
it a lot in the beginning of Delta Flyers. They did.
that they had that much distrust between the crew, and then it was gone. And they really, and I think Robbie made a comment about he really wished they would have again explored that a little bit longer.
I mean, Voyager came out when I was 11. So, I as a kid, I didn't wanna see them, like, fully, like, battle it out. So, for me as a kid, I liked that, but as an adult, we're like, "Yeah, no, these people have very, very different opinions and points of view of the universe." Like, you would think they would need to discuss things a little bit more, but, I mean, they are on a little dictatorship because that's what happens when there's 174 people and what she's like, "Ah, this is my world. What I say goes." But so I do think they may have carried that a little bit more in Enterprise because there was some backlash, I think, from Voyager on that.
Yeah, you're probably right. And so, and yeah, and I suspect that's what happened. And so, you know, again, we're doing the building like you said. Um, so now I really want to know what was your opinion about the dancers on Rigel?
The butterfly dancers make me think of James Bond every single time because there is in it's one of Timothy Dalton's ones, and there he's in Paris, and there's a literal butterfly dancer, show that he runs through, and she's got little butterflies that she's dancing with. So it makes me think of James Bond every time. I'm like, that is funny. It's in my notes. I'm like, James Bond made it to James Bond butterfly dancers made it to different worlds and into the future. So it makes me happy. It's fine. I thought it was funny that they did have them eat the butterflies. Like that's definitely interesting. And I did like again that we had Travis and Reed together. So like newbie to space and then the space boomer, like, dude, come on, like we gotta go. Stop being distracted by things. Let's go. So I like
That is so funny because that is exactly what I had here. I said Reed is very intrigued by those dancers, but Travis doesn't appear to be. He's not phased at all. And my thought was it made me wonder if it's because of his time on his family's cargo ship, And yes, oh
That's what
wow.
I think. Because I mean, we talk about it when we earlier in the episode when Travis is in the sweet spot and
Mhm.
Trip comes and visits him, and we talk about, they have three. And so I'm like, he's been out, he might be the young person on the ship, but he's had more space experience than anyone else. So he kind of gets to like give advice, which I really enjoy. I think that's fun. The older characters get to go to the younger characters for like advice, like, what do I do out here? Like, this is so different than, Florida or San Francisco or England. Like, what is this? And he's just like, no, this is normal. Let's go.
That's funny that we both thought the same thing. That is hilarious. Um, and then one of my nitpicks that I've always had with Trip is he just does not know how to not interfere with other races.
And they're setting that up for his character in this one, and it gets bad. Like this one is, I do agree when T'Pol is, what is her line? Ah, I don't remember the line, but it's just that humans are really bad about jumping to conclusions about other races. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's true. We do. And he wouldn't know that, but he could just ask to Paul, like, do you know what's happening here? Should we step in? And yes, Vulcans are going to say no, no matter what, because they're just non-interference. But she can also just say like, oh, he's being weaned.
Yeah, I don't know why he didn't ask. I mean, but I know, well, it's character building, so I get it. That's why they didn't do it. But I like, I don't. And honestly, this is me putting myself in that spot. I think I just would have had to ask instead of like start just outright yelling.
Never yell at a mom and her kid, ever. Like, hey, can I help with anything? Super. And then you come in with, grace. If somebody needs help, they'll ask for it, but or let you continue a conversation. But yeah, no, I agree. I did not like that either. I'm like, Trip has to stop yelling at people he knows nothing about, because he definitely does jump to conclusions a lot.
Oh yeah, and then yeah, exactly. And so but and so after all of that lovely experience, somehow Hosty DePaul and Archer and all them find themselves down in like I'm gonna just say the sewer area, but the underground of the Rigel place, and nothing's gonna go good down there. It never does.
No. No, no. I was really
Mm.
excited about the actress who plays Saren because I love her. She's been in all sorts of different sci-fi shows, but I recognize her from Firefly. So
Oh,
that's
really?
my favorite. Yeah, she's in one episode of Firefly. I mean, there's 15 episodes of Firefly. So it's not like she's in many of them. But yeah, she's in one, and one that never aired too. So you had to have the DVDs to know she was in it. But that's every time I see her, I'm like, Firefly. Even when, she's in the green makeup, I'm like, I can still recognize her voice. I'm like, it's her. It's the madam from Firefly. Yes.
I'm gonna have to look that up myself because I have never watched Firefly.
Oh, you should. It's great. It came out the 2002.
Okay. Oh, so right after this series
Yep.
started. Oh
Yep.
wow, I didn't. Okay.
Came out my
Well.
sophomore year. And it was only went for 15 episodes, so it's a weekend binge.
Oh, I can do that then. So, okay. And I think we both will have answers to this or even opinions on this. So after, they're down there, Saren captures them and starts telling everybody, kind of to explain what's going on. And again, something I've learned since becoming a Seventh Row member and having to watching all these series is the things you pick up after your second, third, fourth, fifth time of watching it. And this is the first time I realized is I thought, what the hell? Why are why is the Klingon Empire always under attack, the threat of having a why is some outside force always trying to cause a civil war with the Klingons. And usually it's the Romulans, but this time it now it starts with the Suliban.
Well, and the Suliban are being controlled by the fuzzy people who
Yeah,
we don't know
future
who they
guy.
are yet, future Romulans. But spoilers. Sorry, peeps. And for the
Now
temporal.
we don't know that. Oh, I could hear you. Your mic's good.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. So, well, I mean, if you watched the last season um of Strange New Worlds, there's a temporal cold war agent when they go back in time when Kirk and
Okay.
yeah,
Oh, I'm trying to.
and she is a Romulan. So yeah.
Okay. I mean, I
So
do remember that thing,
yeah.
but see, here's the problem.
But why they
And we
want to
this
keep doing it is because if you make the Klingons fight, they spill out and they completely destabilize everyone around them because they will not stay within their borders. And so that's my guess.
and it probably is. I just thought it was funny. I finally picked up today that this is another external source trying to cause a Klingon civil war.
And it's usually the Romulans because I mean, let's see, they did it in TOS, they did it in Next Generation. It wasn't the Romulans in Deep Space Nine, it was the Changelings, the founders. But yeah, like
Again,
everyone's doing
external source.
it. It's like, no, 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 no.
Yeah. Well, and that makes me okay. So if they had gotten their, fifth, sixth, and seventh season, the speculation was that future guy was actually Archer. That was one. That was going to be one of the theories was that it was actually Archer. But I mean, I remember you. I remember that scene with that reason, Strange New Worlds about the Romulan agent. So, I mean, I actually I like your idea because again, it would fit with current canon of Romulans trying to screw with the Vulcans. I mean, the Klingons.
Well, the Klingons and just trying to destabilize our alliances. So
Well,
humans
yeah,
with
stop
Vulcans
it from happening.
and Andorians, the Tellarites, all of it is trying to destable that. So no, it makes complete sense for Romulans to have their little fingers in there and go, no, 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 no. We want this to all be chaos.
True. Well, I'm going to I will agree with that thought. Period. I will agree with you 100%. So then, obviously, after all that, we have the crew once again is under fire, trying to escape.
Why did the entire command crew go on that away mission?
We didn't have the rules yet.
Okay. All right.
I'm just going to say that.
Because like
But
it gets me because it happens all the time in all the shows. But I'm like, this is the first away mission, like the first away mission of Starfleet history, really. And literally the entire command crew goes down into a hostile situation. I'm just like, you took Hoshi. I'm like, I know why you took Hoshi, but like still, you need the translator. But she does not want to go into a combat situation. I
well,
yeah.
that's a good point. And yeah, honestly, I may have made this comment on one of our reviews, especially on TOS. It's not until next gen
Yep.
that the captain. That's the first time we actually hear, if I'm not mistaken,
Yep.
that the captain is really not supposed to go on the away missions.
Yep, that's Riker's job. Yeah, no, Riker
That's right.
says something about that
Yeah.
in one of the first
Well,
episodes, I think.
I think it's actually actually I want to say it might have been no, it wasn't Encounter Farpoint. Uh it was either there, it was somewhere in there. He actually talks about Picard's telling another person, and for some reason, I think it's Jellicoe. I want to think it's Jellicoe that he's telling him why he picked Will, and it's because he would not let his captain go on an away mission, and he stood up to his captain.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Kirk is the whole reason we have this rule that
Oh,
the
absolutely.
the captain's
Yeah,
not supposed to
absolutely.
go on the. I mean, Pike might be leading into it too. Pike and Kirk are
Hell yeah.
forever on
Absolutely.
those away missions,
Oh
getting
yeah.
into scraps.
So now, so we
While they're
they're
all being fired on, I love that what Archer goes, where's the pod? And T'Pol's like, is this way? And Trip's like, no, it's this way. And Archer looks at Trip and looks at T'Pol and goes, let's go this way. And Paul, it's like, no, no, Trip. And then, they haven't gotten to it. And Trip's like, I told you it's this way. And then the next scene is Travis and Reed in the pod. Reed going, "You have to find them. Look for Vulcan life signs." And Travis is like, and then knock, knock, knock on the window. I found her.
that was funny.
Like,
That was so good.
I love
She's
that.
right there.
She's right
That
there.
was a great little tidbit there. And of course, then we have some more issues because Captain Archer gets shot in the leg, and oh boy, T'Pol assumes command.
Well, but first we have to go through the decon chamber for the first time. Let's
Well,
not.
we haven't gotten to there yet
Oh,
because
okay.
she assumes command while they're on their shuttlecraft
Oh, that's
heading
right.
back.
Okay.
She reads. She hails the Enterprise saying, Hefflock's down here and all this stuff. I'm assuming command. And of course, they all look over like, oh shit, that just doesn't happen. And then, yes, now we have the infamous decon chamber
And the
scenes.
sparkly gel. I,
Yeah.
I those actors had to have hated that because glitter goes everywhere and you can't wash it off. It just is everywhere. So I'm assuming they all sparkled for 4 years, just at all times. But I did laugh when Trip and T'Pol are helping each other with the decontamination gel, and he does her ears. I'm like, she can reach her ears, but in retaliation, she did his. I'm like, okay, all right. So now we felt each other's ears. I'm like, okay. And as a Deep Space Nine fan, I'm like, I don't think it's quite the same as Ferengi ears, but we touch ears a lot in Star Trek, so I do think that's a little weird.
Well, and there was as we outside of the show, there was always a lot of questions about the whole decon chamber and all of that in the gel. And yes, they did it for the sex appeal, just straight up.
I mean, Jolene is beautiful.
Yeah.
And so is Linda. And then, and yeah, Anthony Montgomery and Connor Trainer. Like, this is a very pretty cast. Like, let's not skip on that. But yeah, they were a very good looking cast and they were all pretty fit. Probably the fittest of the casts. And so, yeah,
I'd say so.
yeah,
I I don't think I
they're in
don't
their
I'm sorry.
underwear a lot.
They are. But yeah, there was a lot of hate out there from some of the fandom about because of the sexist aspect of the decon chamber. Why did they have to be, half naked and underwear, blah, blah, blah. I mean, again, it's 2001.
Yeah, 2001 was a time. It was definitely a time where low-rise jeans are coming into fashion with little crop tops. Like, they were also going off of what was out there in media and trying to stay relevant, and they were helping to launch a network. UPN was right? UPN? No. Yes, okay. And that was definitely more of a sexy network. They had more of those teeny bopper shows that people were wearing skimpy things. So I could see why that happened. Do we have to like it? No, but it was a sign of the times. I mean, I say it about TOS. We get to say it about Enterprise too, because it was over 20 years ago.
Yeah, it'd be 25 years next year, which is so cool because I think most of them are going to probably be on the cruise in 26 along with the 60th. So
That's cool.
it should be fun. Um, and did you notice, and I picked up again a lot, there was a lot of animosity, or yeah, I must say animosity during that scene when Trip and T'Pol are discussing, basically why humans don't trust Vulcans, and so on and so on. Again, more Vulcan human hate.
Yes. And it's funny. I think because they are actively helping each other at the time, I don't mind that one as much. Like, they are working together and they are saying the internal things out loud. So, like, this is why I don't like you and not just I don't like you. So, we're at least getting a bit more background on that, and they do seem to be listening to each other because if we move on, we know that this was a productive conversation. This is their first productive conversation of the entire episode.
It's a because it was a very productive conversation because of the way he when he explains why Captain Archer is basically so hell bent on wanting this mission to succeed, which it finally resonates with DePaul, and she then takes the time to actually help modify the sensors.
Like, how can I actually help that I have been tasked to be here and they want to grow? Like, who am because yeah, no, and she does. Like, okay, I can do this. I am the first officer, the science officer, but I can help the captain do what he wants. I can anticipate what he would like to do and I can help with that. So yeah, I think that is why I don't mind that animosity because it actually is productive.
Well, and you see the flip now. They kind of flipped the switch a little bit, and even Archer. So now when they come into sick bay and he wakes up with you know with
With the
Phlox
eel
taking
in his
with
underwear
Phlox,
and his little undershirt and
you
"What's our
know,
bearing?
oh,
How
huh?
long have we been heading towards Earth?" Like, "We're not." Like,
Oh
"What?"
yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, and that's what that was, and that again. Now we're actually kind of getting into the world of the we know where Vulcans, the science officer works for us and helps us out because now they trace the warp field of or the warp signature of those Silibon ships and allow us to find their homeworld, or I don't know if it's their
Or
homeworld,
their
but their the helix,
helix, yes. The
the
helix was
helix.
so cool.
Hmm.
So Archer's log entry after on the way to the helix, where he's saying all of this and then stopping it and like I've never known a Vulcan to do this. I'm like, actually, returning a favor is logical to me. So I was just like, what? She saved your life, or you saved her life, and now she saved your mission. Like even Steven, like, she doesn't owe you anything now. Like, I think that's logical, so but I thought that was funny. And we started in on the series-long battle for Porthos and cheddar cheese and his lactose intolerant dad that the dog can't eat cheese, and he wants that, but I thought it's cute that we start that here.
And it was good because I forgot. Well, I'm glad you mentioned it because I remember that, but I just had I didn't really make a notes of that, but I do remember that whole scene is like, what'd she do? Because it's honestly blowing his mind. He can't understand because as we both know now, he still holds a grudge against them for his because his father didn't get to make the ship to see the Warp 5. And it's just he's stuck in a loop. He's like, well, why? No, she can't be that. No, he just goes back and forth. And but as we know later on, they finally, he it works out, and it works out, and so it allows them to get to the helix. And oh man, it made me think of that. A lot of those scenes in the ship scenes, good old submarine movies.
Yes, exactly. It really does 'cause we're in that, like, messy, atmosphere, so it's not really clear, and we're doing depth charges and, like, looking around. It also reminds me a lot of The Wrath of Khan when we're in the nebula and no one has sensors and sneaking around that way too. So, yes, I do enjoy that a lot. I got really wrapped up in that part, and I don't have as many notes because I was enjoying that part of the episode.
Well, yeah, my nights kind of got a little bit short too because yeah, they're in there, they do the work field, they find it, and then and now we get phasers. We see the first phase pistols, and they have two settings: stun and kill. And don't get them confused.
That's right. That'd be bad.
That would be real bad.
Oh,
Um,
and I'm like, "Really? We're Travis is going to quickly teach Trip how to pilot the little pod. We already know he's bad at that from the beginning of the episode. And Trip's, oh, I'll figure it out. I'm like, it's in another language. What do you mean you're just going to figure it out?
Exactly. And that's actually what I have written down here. I said, once again, Trip bumped the shuttle pod into something.
Yes. Oh yeah, and with how it opened, I'm like, I wonder if it needed to be turned just a little bit more so when it opened up, they didn't have to crawl underneath the door because it, yeah. So I'm like, I wonder if they did that to kind of show like he's not the best pilot, so he didn't actually fully align the door where it should have been. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I could see it because he has issues with bumping into things. Um, and so we finally get onto the helix, and you know, and then I think obviously because they needed to start speeding things up, which they did. Um, they actually had very little resistance at the beginning to get to Clang, if I remember correct. And then they really didn't have. It wasn't until they get him, and they're trying to leave, is when all the trouble starts, and the Subon come after them. And so, it made me wonder if Silic was doing that. I think again, it was hard to sometimes tell what Silic was doing and his thought processes.
Well, I don't think he really gets to have a thought process because again, shadowy figure in the future is telling him where to be and what to do, and if he doesn't do things the way he wants, he doesn't get to keep the cool upgrades.
That is correct,
And he gets
as we
them.
know later.
Yeah.
That is very true, and so I mean
I
that
feel a
scene
little
went good.
distracted with how that scene was shot, showing how time is weird, so, like, their voices are kinda echoing and kinda, like,
That
stuttering
almost
across the
was
stage screen.
almost too distracting at times,
So
but it
but
did save Archer's life.
it did, and it yes, exactly. And, it really it does, show what they're trying to do. It was very effective in saying, like, time is weird, and we're seeing it be slowed down physically, but not, like, mentally, like, so it makes sense. I just find it distracting, but I think it's kinda supposed to be, but yes, we knew that somebody was gonna be transported in this episode because we have it's just been set up for biological transport in the beginning of the episode, so I did enjoy that.
I like that, and and I put in my said Archer is the first Enterprise crew member to be transported,
Yeah,
and
and on the run, so they did a great job capturing him.
yeah, and so there's one issue. I don't have an issue with it in Enterprise or the non-Kelvin stuff, but there was some weird stuff in the Kelvin movies that they couldn't. Oh gosh, they said they could not transport someone when they were moving
Oh,
because
like when,
Spock's
there
mom fell.
oh, yes, she was
That
falling, and
and
then
when they were falling,
Kirk and Sulu, and then,
some
Chekhov
other person.
runs and goes, "I can do that, I can do that." I think we can go that he could do it, but he just needed more time than she had because he needed more
I
space
guess.
and to not have
Yeah.
rocks because she fell into rocks.
True.
I mean, let's all be
But
super sad for Winona Ryder because she
yeah,
did a great job as Amanda, but
yeah. I always thought about. I mean, that made me. So again, when you see Enterprise, you see they could do that, but then you go to 2009 movie, and they're like, "Well, we really can't." And I'm like,
I mean,
inconsistencies.
yes, I mean, there's always gonna be inconsistencies,
I
but I
know.
also think running is still not gonna be,
As
terminal
fast falling.
loss, which is what he was
True.
combating in
True.
2009. So,
True.
and
I'll give you that. I'll yield on
okay,
that one. But and then so honestly, after they get back, he gets back to which pays out later on. He brings Clang back to the to Kronos. They pull his blood. Oh, surprise, surprise! There's all the hidden secrets that he didn't know about,
yeah,
and I think that happened in another series. I don't remember. I think it was
where
maybe
they hit it microscopically. in them.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense because I mean,
Yeah.
he's just a carrier or a courier.
Courier. Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. But, and so now Archer is owed a favor by the Klingon Empire, which comes back later on in the series. Um, and so they leave Kronos, and guess what? Now we start the show because they are given their mission. And I liked it. Finally, they finally, kind of put that some of their animosity aside when he said, it might be better if you call
Yes.
Saval.
And ask to stay and
Yeah.
not me asking you to stay. I liked
Hmm.
that with Archer, and I liked the little bit with Hoshi and T'Pol at the end where
Yes,
we exchange thanks Hughes and you're welcome in English and Vulcan.
they basically make up.
Yeah,
Best way to put it, they make up. They just wait till the
exactly.
end of this.
And so I was
Oh.
from having that earlier scene to having this scene, I'm like, thank you for having that because they are the only women on the show. So let's not make them catty towards each other because it's not pleasant to watch. So I'm do glad that they do work on that, and they did work on it in the first episode. Now it's a movie.
Yeah, true. Well, but that's all I have honestly for the series. For me, I like the episode. I like the whole series in general. I think they did a good start to to preparing us for the future of Starfleet and the Federation. And so, yeah, for me, I could watch it again and again, and I have, and I will continue to. So, if you got anything else to say,
Something I think that is really interesting about this is they actually completely wrote the script before they cast it. And I think that is really interesting because they wanted, um, oh my God, Scott Bakula. But they didn't have him. So they definitely wrote the character with him in mind. But he didn't sign on until after it was finished. Same with Jolene. She did not start auditioning until the script was finished. And I think that is really interesting just because usually with shows, and especially with Star Trek, that has been they've at least cast somebody, but none of the regulars were cast. They didn't even know they were regulars until they got the scripts or until like they started filming. They're like, "Hey, wait a minute."
true. And if I remember correctly, Scott Bakula made a comment. I want to say it was on his Decon Chamber interview. Um, he actually didn't want to do another series because after being on Quantum Leap, but when he read the script and they told him you're going to be the first captain.
He also mentioned that on he did William Shatner's The Captain's documentary, and he mentioned that as well on that one. And I definitely can see why. Like that's completely new ground, because especially for a lot of people who are Star Trek fans who, you have your first show that's where you go. And so his was, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. So he's like, how can why would I want to try and copy that? And so getting the chance to pave the way for that's super cool.
Hell yeah. Well, no, and that was the thing. He didn't want to be another Kirk. He wanted to be his own. And if it had been written as you're just going to basically be another Kirk or doing that again, he wasn't going to do it.
Exactly. And I wouldn't
And
blame him.
yeah, no. Well, and if you listen to some of the stories from the other actors how they auditioned, how they got there. All right. Have you ever heard? I mean, you probably have John Billingsley's what he did when
Oh,
he went
squawks like
in.
a bird.
Yes.
Yes. That's why there's that one little kind of squawk noise he does during the attack in sick bay.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. He thought it was
Yes.
a bird. I do love that we started wait, what's the line? Optimism, Captain, and then
Yes.
he gets
Optimism.
get the smile, the full
I think I saw it called as the Denoblian Super Smile.
yes.
But I think I don't know if it was John or someone made a comment though. They only did it that one time
Because it
because
costs so much money.
the VFX was so much to do.
Yes.
I mean,
That's
just that
one thing
little.
I noticed on this one, is there was so much effects on this one, so much CGI, and it kinda made me miss the matte paintings. I'm like, "Those paintings were always so beautiful," but again, it's a sign of the times, like, no, we're moving into that because you could see it in, Voyager, where, it was more 50-50, and then now we're gonna go to pretty much all CGI.
Oh yeah. No, I again, I can't. And Enterprise, it wasn't until I think second season or start of the third season became the first. I think it was third season when it became the first show shot in high def,
Yes.
when they got the red camera as it was called, and there was some, yeah, I saw someone explain about that. And so it was interesting how they were the first to do this and that, and they were,
Mhm.
it wasn't just the first for the captain of Starfleet. It was also some of the first in the newer technologies that they got to use. As we progress through the show, we'll be able to discuss other things. Unfortunately, I want to extend a huge thank you to Allyson for joining me for this inaugural review. I couldn't do this without her, nor without my future co-hosts who will be jumping in for upcoming episodes. As this is a new venture for the channel and our first full episode recap, things might feel a bit rough around the edges, but rest assured, we'll keep improving with each episode. Thank you for watching, and as always, live long and prosper.
Thank you for watching The Transporter Room. For just $5 per month, enjoy ad-free access to this episode and all previous ones, plus exclusive bonus content. Sign up now on Patreon.